Alrighty, folks, welcome to our Tuesday collaboration session. It's wonderful to see all of you here. For anyone that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, because there's a couple of names that I see here that I don't think I've ever met before. I'm AJ from Supercharged Offers. My wonderful CSM Corianne is on the call with me as well. So we're here to look after you all and make sure we bring you all awesome content that helps you on your land journey. And I'm super happy today to present not only someone who is an expert in their field in all things probate, but someone who's also a good personal friend of mine, because Al Nicoletti, about a decade ago, is when I first met Al, when he was still working for a different law firm. He wasn't doing any of this social stuff that we see him doing now and all the podcasting and all of that. He was just a regular guy doing probate deals for land people. So we got introduced through our title company back in the day, and Al was helping me out with a deal. And I just learned so much from Al. And I got to say, it's been an absolute honor and privilege to just watch him over that decade grow into the absolutely awesome human he is now. He was an awesome human back then, but he's just like awesome times 10 now, because he gives so much value out to our communities when it comes to the deals that people are doing, helping them through understanding what probate is, and not being, I guess, Al, I'm going to put this in the right words, right? Not being scared of probate. I think a lot of people hear the word probate and they automatically go, oh, that's a deal killer, or that's going to take 6 months to fix, or that's going to cost way too much money, and they walk away from the deal. Let me tell you guys, we've got some customers that are focusing purely on probate deals, and they are killing it. And why they're killing it? Because it's a value add. They're providing a service. They're helping customers out with properties that other people have shied away from because they hear the word and they just associate that it's too much and too big and too overwhelming. But what Al's going to take you guys through today is it's not all that. There's a lot of, not only is there a lot to be made when it comes to probate deals, but there's a lot of value add that you guys can do to help out the property owners and their families through sometimes, you know, difficult times or places that they don't know how to navigate themselves. So I'm going to hand over to Al. And Al, thank you for coming on today and for sharing everything. We really can't wait. Guys, if you are watching this on Facebook, because we are going live to Facebook at the moment, if you're watching this on Facebook, please go to my post that I did earlier today and look for the link and come and join us live. We would love to see you on here. But if not, enjoy the Facebook Live as well. Guys, if you do have questions as you go, please pop them in the chat. We'll be pausing for questions. But without further ado, Al Nicoletti, come on down.
Thank you so much, Alicia, and thank you so much for the warm introduction. And it has been a long time since we've been working together. And it's crazy to you took me back for a second, back to the title days of first starting out in Jack's Beach and walking through a couple of those probates. You are so wonderful, and I'm honored to be a part of your whole community for Supercharged Offers. And I got a great presentation for everybody, and I'm going to dive in on that. And like we talked about, and if you have questions, want to go back and forth, Alicia, just let me know, and we'll dive in on that.
Yeah,
So,
Corianne and I will keep an eye on the chat box for you. So guys, if you do have any questions as you go, pop them in the chat and we'll be happy to pause and get you involved and take you off mute.
perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me come do this whole presentation. And thank you all for being on. I hope this is going to be useful, helpful. And just I want to make a note. I sent the freebie checklist to Alicia and Corianne's inbox. So we'll make sure that circulates to your entire community. Great freebie right at the end so you can get that to everybody.
Awesome. Thank you,
So
Al.
you're welcome. So for anybody that doesn't know, my name is Al Nicoletti. I am an attorney here in Florida. I specialize in the probate niche. I do, gosh, I'm on pace to do 400 probates this year alone. I'm trying to get to 500, but yeah, I've done over thousands of probates so far, and I work with tons of investors on getting these probates done in the Florida market. And I love this niche. It's gotten me to where it has over the last 8, 9 years, and I'm full steam ahead. You can tell me that the market's slow. I don't believe that at all. It's been picking up even more. I'm busier than ever. So we're going to dive in on this and see where we go from here. You got
Al, can I just add a precursor there? I know you only do the Florida market, but a lot of the stuff that Al's going to talk about today, guys, the principles remain the same. Like, yes, there's different laws in different states, but the principles on approaching a probate deal and having those conversations with families, a lot of the stuff that Al's going to cover don't think of it just as this is Florida, right? The principles are the same no matter where we go, correct, Al?
Yeah, the laws are gonna be different state to state.
Going
The
to be
process.
different nuances there. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have different nuances. Things are going to be different because state law is state law. Florida's different than Georgia. But the idea, the general perspective of it is that probate can be this very successful niche, and we'll talk about what this is. And I don't want people to be scared of getting into it just because you're not in the Florida market. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a few other lawyers that I may know of in other states like Texas. I just picked up somebody in North Carolina that I found about. So we'll dive in on that. You have a question, and if I know somebody there, I'll help you. If I don't know somebody there, I don't know anybody there, so I can't help you there. Scan the QR code, save my contact information. If you scan it, you'll get my email, my phone number. That's where you'll have all the contact. And if you're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, this is the perfect time to get on the phone, get on your computer, subscribe, hit the bell, because I may not talk about things today that I could make 80, 90 videos on different topics that could be very helpful and useful for your business. I have people tell me, or I just had a call the other day where a guy's been watching me from when I've posted the walk-in talks on the beach, and he finally reached out. He said, I've been watching your videos for the last 4 or 5 years. So there's people that will watch, and there's valuable information for you all out there. Check that out. That's my podcast on the left. Alicia's been on it, not once, but twice, being an absolute gem that she is, giving away so much valuable information. You got to check out the podcast, and that's my YouTube channel on the right. You don't want to miss that. Lots of info there. And we're going to talk about revealing the success to probate and land today. This is going to be a huge opportunity for people to learn all about this. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a Florida lawyer. I've been doing this for 8 years. 95% of my practice is probate. Very small percentage of things that I do, maybe messy title things, but I cherry pick that stuff. 95%. That is everything in my practice, right? I'm not the lawyer that's dabbling and juggling different things. Like, this is what I do every single day. I've completed over 1,000 probates. It's got to be even more than that by now. And we've done things from easy to really crazy wild. So I've seen a thing here or two. I haven't seen everything yet. But this is the biggest opportunity I feel that we are all about to embark on right now. A lot of people want to find deals. A lot of people want to find leads, and a lot of people want to find leads that produce stability for themselves, right? Anybody wants to find a niche that can last not just 1 year, but 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And when I first got into this niche, it had to be like 2 years before I met Alicia. I remember I was studying this. I was studying probate. Like, what is probate? I was at the stage where many of you were, or some of you are, of what even is probate? Is this something? Is this a possibility? And I remember it took me like a year before it really sunk in of, whoa, this thing has a lot of potential. There's a lot of opportunity here that I don't think people are paying attention to. And what I had discovered at the time was how many properties at any given time circulate in the county records that have probate opportunity. So, for example, I was able to find at the time where there's just thousands of properties in Miami-Dade, thousands of properties in Hillsborough County, thousands of properties in Jacksonville, thousands of properties in Orlando at any given time where somebody owned the property, they died, and the property is sitting it just in the name of the person that died. They can't transfer it out because probate, the process to get it out of their name, was never done. Nobody was able to provide that solution. And so at the time, I thought, wait a second, this is going to be huge. And I thought, well, aren't we headed to like this big baby boomer period where this is going to just be endless upon endless? Like there's going to be a big pop. And so that's when I really discovered that back in 2016, 2017, that we were headed to one of the biggest shifts in our generation of the transfer of wealth. And this is the biggest untapped niche that people aren't paying attention to. Well, some people are paying attention to it, but not to the level that I would think they're paying attention to it. And only after doing this for eight, almost 9 years, Now, do I hear people say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got into probate because now we're finding these deals have spreads of 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. And I'll talk about deals that people have seen and gotten done that are really impressive. So the surge of these probates are coming more and more, and we're going to see a lot of these. And for the land, what I mean is, people owned a lot of property back in the 70s and 80s. Back then, there was a lot of those TV auctions, land auctions, and a lot of these people bought these lots of land thinking that eventually they were going to move there and build on it, or eventually their family was going to build on it, or maybe they're going to give it to their kids. Well, it all sounds great in the moment, but they never do it. Then they die and they leave it there. And all these lots, there's thousands and thousands of lots just sitting. So the opportunity is just endless when it comes to this because this market's not changing. We're only going to keep going. And this is what I'm talking about. This is some of the charts that I started seeing early on that was just like, whoa, what's going on? They call it the silver tsunami. So the baby boomers that own property, their ages are only going higher, and the amount that actually owned property is really high. And so we're headed to this boom. As you can see early on, we're going to keep going for the next 20, 30 years on this trajectory of higher and more and more. This isn't like the short sale era where for a lot of people it was up and then it was down. Like there's no stability there, only volatility. This is only going to go up and it's very stable on this end. Also, these stats, Alicia, these stats just came out like about 2 months ago. And these are the probate filings for the last 10 years, at least in Florida alone. As you can see, this has only gone up. Maybe a little bit at the end has it gone down, but the filings and the cases being disposed of have finally found equilibrium and things are finally moving through the court systems in a smoother process, probably because of more things being electronically filed and everything. But I wanted to show you this
Yeah.
because the data doesn't lie. When you see the court filings actually having an uptick over the last 10 years, this is only going to be more. So this potential is there. And these are stats that show that the baby boomer era is going to be even bigger. And these are 2019 stats. So the amount of people that moved to Florida from 2019 to 2022 is only even higher than this. You have baby boomer owned properties in at least Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando area doubling in the next 10, 15 years. And it's not even just that. You have Arizona, Ohio, and I know a lot of people love Texas, North Carolina, Ohio. What's another one? Colorado. People are focused on all these areas that are their growth areas. There's lots of opportunity. So there's a lot of potential behind this, and I think you got that idea. Now, as Alicia said, yes, is there opportunity for probate in all these other states? There's opportunity all around. I focus in Florida, and for those that do focus in Florida, you can't go wrong with any of these counties, really. You just got to make sure that there's builders that want to build in that area. And I can tell you, a lot of traction going on in Marion County, a lot of stuff always happening down in the Southwest Florida area, a lot going on in some of these other secondary counties and Polk County, because a lot of people are trying to move from Orange and Hillsborough to Polk County. A lot of attraction going on over here and the Panhandle as well. And I show Florida because, yeah, I handle all of Florida, but I'm seeing right now in the market where a lot of people are focused on a lot of these tertiary markets, not just infill lots and vacant lots in the main cities, but also some of the outer counties like Levy County and Citrus County. There's a lot of movement over there. So you really can't go wrong. Different areas to focus on, but the markets are great. So as far as probate, a lot of people think that they have to know all of these words and these terms and understand the whole process in order to fully get into probate, right? A lot of people feel that you have to know this stuff to dive in. You really don't. The most important thing to know when you get into probate is who's the expert I need to go to, who's the title company I need to connect with, and what information do I need to know just enough about to sound good to the sellers to get the deal. That's it. If you just know just enough to make it sound like, hey, I've been through this before. I know who to go to. We got the team. We know where to go. Sellers feel more comfortable with that, right? If you don't have the answers to who the team is or the expert is or who they can go to and guide them, they're not going to feel comfortable with where to go. So great examples early on, anytime Alicia got a probate, even Al when he was like baby Al, even back then she said, "Hey, I'm going to send you to Al Nicoletti. He's a probate attorney. He handles this stuff in Florida and you know where to go." Right? And Alicia knew just enough about what probate was. Hey, the property's in your parents' name. In order for us to get it out of their name, we got to go through this paperwork process to get it out of their name. We got to have the lawyer do it. The lawyer will take care of it. And then once it's done, we'll send it to the title company so we can close and we can help you sell the property. That's really it. You don't have to know all those technical aspects. And people spend hours and hours trying to learn all the words and stuff. And it's crazy. You don't have to know all those kinds of things.
All that I
And
really, if I can just hit on that for
yeah,
a second, I remember back the last one that I did, which was a long time ago, I just had a little checklist. So as soon as the seller said, "Oh, look, it's in a will or it got inherited," anything like that, I would just go through a really simple checklist, which was to ask them who was designated in the will. Has the will been executed? Is there an executor of the estate? Who are the main ones that are the heirs? And can you tell me how many children they've got? Don't need to know the names or anything at that stage. Is there any family members that aren't maybe talking to one another that we might need to work through? So I just had a little checklist like that. So when I picked up the phone to Al, I could give him the picture of very, very high level. Here's the kind of situation we're dealing with. Now we go to the next phase. So that's pretty much all I ever had to know, guys.
yeah, and it's great because if you're able to explain just enough to some of these sellers, it gets them right on the hook. We move forward, it gets things flowing, and then you're able to then get on the track for having a consult, right? And that's the key. The consultation with the lawyer and having everybody on is where everything's going to happen. And what blew everybody's mind early on when I was doing this, and I think Alicia's too, was how fast the probates can actually happen as well. A lot of people, and just to make this interactive, because I know I could have the radio voice for an hour or two. How many people used to hear that probate would take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? Drop a comment, right? Drop a fire emoji, a yes, a this, because a lot of people used to hear that, oh, wait, no, you hear probate, it's going to take 7 months, it's going to take 12 months, it's going to take 2 years. Um, that's not what happens with probate, at least in Florida. And some of the other states that I've heard about, California is a little bit different, I've heard. California is like the one that can take like 12 months to 2 years. It's crazy, but we're not focused on that. Florida, at least, or the very least, is one that can take a matter of weeks. I think I remember back in the day, pre-COVID, we were walking these things and getting these things done. And now, of course, everything's electronic. But right now, we're seeing things get done in a matter of 4 to 8 weeks, 3 to 8 weeks, the most maybe 10 to 13 weeks, right? But when you get these deals, these can be fast probates, and that means open and shut done. And I've put a couple of the times that we've seen recently that we can get these probates done. Yeah, certain counties are always going to be a little trickier than others, but it's important to know what the timings are because you don't want to pick up a probate and go, oh, I don't want to do that because it's going to take too long. These can be relatively fast. And by the way, just wanted to make a plug. In my world, we will wait until the closing to get paid for the fees and the costs, right? So if you find a probate in Florida and then you talk to the seller and you're thinking, oh, well, now I got to do probate, I got to pay Al up front, or the seller's thinking, hey, I got to pay Al up front. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We will wait until the HUD statement, the closing. That means no money up front, nothing at the outset, no retainer up front. We get paid at the end. That helps the seller big time. Oh, they're like, oh, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I'll wait until the sale, or you'll pay for it at the end. So just want to make sure you all understand That is somebody you want to find in any state you go to, right? See if you can find an attorney like in Texas or North Carolina, Georgia, or Ohio, wherever you're doing probate. See if they'll wait and collect the money at the closing. Because if you find that, that's a gem. That's a keeper right there. Because if they're willing to play that, perfect. Now, anytime you get a probate, you have to be able to think, where do we begin? Right? How does this all start? How does this all begin? And it always starts with the deed to the property, right? You'll get sellers that you'll get on the phone, they'll talk to your acquisitions, your lead manager, and they may say, no, 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 I have the will, I have this, they gave it to me, they verbally said, we got to start always from the beginning of how we get somewhere, right? And how we get somewhere is, what does the title to the property say? And we only know that by pulling the deeds. And the deeds usually come from the property appraiser because they'll post that there. And if on the deed you see somebody's name and you're talking to somebody else that not the name on the deed, you got to start asking your questions of, how are you related to so and so on the deed? And that's where the conversations start flowing. Oh, that was mom, that was dad. Well, what happened? Where are they? Asking those questions about what's next, right? And so you have to start there. Only there will you be able to say, okay, I think we got a probate. I think we got something on the table. Or you end up going under contract with these people just because that's just how it ended up happening. And then you bring the contract to the title company, and the title company then says, hey, Alicia, by the way, we got your contract and you opened up escrow. But in order for everybody to close, probate's going to be needed here. So just know that this is the root source to where everything begins. Now, the what and the why, for those that don't know, the what is somebody owned a property, land, single family, somebody owned it in their name and they died. To take it out of that person's name, we on the lawyer end, we're getting all the information, or the heirs are sending us stuff. We have a whole checklist. We'll send you that, or Alicia will send you that. We're getting all this information on who the person is, what the asset is, who the beneficiaries are, and we're listing everything out. And then what we're going to do is put it all together, send it to the heirs, they sign it, we file it in court, it gets sent back to us. We file that, we eventually get court orders, and then we take those court orders and we send them to the title company. And what the orders do is it transfers the title out of that person's name to who the heirs are. That's it. All we're really doing is moving the title out of the name of the deceased person to who the heirs are. And the why is, at least in Florida, we have to do it because the law says so. And two, title insurance requires it. So whenever you get a seller that says, but why do we need to do this? But why do we need to do probate? I've always been told like we have to do probate. Just say, for me to buy the property, the title company, the one that's coordinating the transaction, requires it to be done because Florida says we have to do it, and we can't close on the property unless we get it done. That way, you're shifting the blame over.
Can I add to that, Al? Because
Yes.
when I've had people ask me that question, and I'm like, well, unfortunately, and this is going to sound a little bit trite, guys, but it's true, right? Unfortunately, when it comes to closing on a property, we want to protect the owner of the property. Now, if the owner of the property is now unfortunately deceased, they can't sign for it. So I need to make sure that the rightful owner is the one signing. And I'm sure if you were on, the receiving end of that, you'd want to make sure that the rightful person is signing. The only way to find out who that rightful person is to do a probate.
And you find out all of who these people are when we have the consult, because then we break down who everybody is. My process has changed so much from the Alicia era of consults. It's so interesting to see. Like, Alicia, you would find it very fascinating how a consult works for me now versus back then. I don't know how I did stuff back then. I don't even know. I don't want to know, actually. But we always discover that who that is through consults. And sometimes there's a will. You may ask your questions and they say, hey, by the way, mom, she owned the property, but she had a will. Well, great. Where is it? Who has it? right? We got to know where these things are. It can't be anything verbal. Where is it? Because it says who gets what. And sometimes a lot of these land properties, people own land, they have a will that went to a trust. Where's the trust? So a lot of this comes down to asking your questions. Ask the questions, what's going on, what happens, and also we always need to know where the original ink will is too, because it's got to be an original ink will to be the will, or it's presumed revoked and destroyed. So we have to always ask these questions as we go. And sometimes if there's no will, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier because the Florida statutes or the statutes, wherever you are, dictate who comes next in line. It will say who comes next in line. And why does all of this matter to you about will or no will? Because in that line is determined who you would need for your purchase contract. In that line is who you would need for to sign at the closing table. So Alicia is thinking, okay, well, Al's saying, hey, if there's no will, I need to think about, wait, who's next in line? What do we need to do? Because I need to get those people under contract. I need to make sure those people are showing up at the closing table. Because if you don't get those people, you could be in a way more difficult situation than you realize. But in terms of no will, we have a whole line that we go down. I can't do it for everybody on video because it just wouldn't be the same. But I call this the probate Macarena. Like how I remember who's next in line. I have a whole like dance for people like in person. And Alicia, I did it at LPG, and I gotta tell you, it was a hit. Had everybody standing up. It was crazy. Um, but what that really is a way for people to remember who are we looking for in these similar situations? What's the questions we're asking for? So when you get a lead, these are great questions to ask, right? If you find a probate, what are some of the questions you want to ask? Well, number one, is there a will? Is there a will? Where is it? Who has it? No will? Who's the surviving spouse? Is there any surviving spouse? No. How many children ever? Not just I'm the only one, not just I'm the last one, there's nobody left. Ever. These questions matter for what we're looking for. And I totally understand they all tell you one story, and then I get on the phone, and then they find out that there's seven kids, right? It's the same old thing over and over. But you do your best because if you find out what's going on, now you have a bigger picture of what you're going to be dealing with, right? And then, of course, if there's none of those, parents, brothers, sisters, ever, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, like the line keeps going on and on. But this is the idea of who you would be looking for. Alicia, any questions on the tree?
None from me. Anybody got any questions they want to pop into the chat on that? And I guess what we're trying to find there, it's really a matrix, if you like, guys, of trying to find who is the still alive person in the entire family chain that can then be the next rightful owner that can then sign on the documents, right, Al? So hence why we're asking all these questions of people, because there may be divorces and a whole range of things that people don't think about when they think about the family, right? That nucleus can often be very different unless we're asking the right questions.
Yep, you got to ask the right questions to know what you're looking for sure. And then when you have a real estate contract, you got to get all of them to sign the contract. If there's five kids ever, all five sign. If there's two kids, two kids. If there's 25, hopefully you don't have that situation, but you got to get all 25. There's not going to be a specific contract, right? There's not going to be a specific probate contract. But the idea is that you want to make sure that you leave enough time on your contract for closing, whether it's 90 to 120 days or probate subject to court orders, a closing is subject to probate court orders, or closings to take place 30 days after completion of probate. The idea is you want to have some of these things in place so that you buy yourself time with the sellers and not have to chase addendum after addendum. These are great practices that you can implement so that you're not chasing this stuff over and over. And I see a lot of the same and similar things. What somebody will do is they'll say, hey, I got a probate and we just put a 30-day close. How does that sound? No. Like, there's no way for a 30-day close. I mean, maybe in a Lee County probate, barely, but I'm not even banking on that right away because by the time everything's prepared, docs are sent, docs come back, you're already looking at 2.5 weeks, maybe three between all of that coming back. So this part's really important for people to take a look at. Also, Alicia wanted me to go over like leads. Um, at least for land, I wouldn't say pre-foreclosures, but at least for land, you can find anything with pre-probate leads, tax delinquencies, code violations. These three are pretty good because whenever you get a probate, it's a distress lead. That means it's a signal that somebody either isn't paying their taxes, they're behind in their taxes, or they're dead, right? And
Yeah.
you can get code enforcement or code violation delinquent notices because somebody owned the property, they died, now it's overgrown shrubbery and whatnot going on the property. So any types of leads you're thinking distressed, I think the tax delinquents are great for land. I think anything pre-probate's great, and code violation, you can find land in there. You
Can I
can't.
add to that list, Al?
Yeah. Yes.
We also, guys, when we're looking at a potential probate for land, we're also including things like intra-family transfers, things that have been transacted on $100 quick claim deed or below. Because if something's been transacted for $100, $50, or even zero, even if it's in the last, 6 months, sometimes that's just a family member closing out the process of one owner to another. So we even look at all that stuff too.
Yeah, there's different ways you can find these leads, and you can't go wrong with the tax delinquents. At least I've seen people have great success with tax delinquents in different ways.
Yeah.
And then if you get leads, I will say this. The title commitment is my favorite thing whenever finding out if we need to do probate. Uh, Anytime I get a probate deal, these are the things that I need. The title commitment comes from the title company. So if Licia goes under contract, she's going to get a title commitment from the title company, and that's going to determine what we're doing. If you've never seen one, you got to get with your title company for that. That's going to be really key for everybody when you get these deals. And then um, before I get into any case studies and dive in on that, Alicia, did you want to go over any other questions, ideas, conversations, anything like that?
Oh,
Perfect.
good. And you caught me having a cookie. My apologies, guys.
You're
No, this
good.
is great. Let's keep going, Alan. If anyone's got questions, pop them in the chat box, guys. We'll bring you off mute. But this is awesome, Al.
Perfect. So I want to go over some case studies that I've seen specifically with land. Um, the reason that I curated this a certain way, and I think it really will hit for some people, because it really shows the power of getting into this niche and what it could actually do. And I've seen a lot of great success stories with single family homes. I've seen a lot of success stories with land, but certain types of properties we've seen it just really hit home for people. And here are some big ones. Um, this was one where it was in Lee Acres. So Lehigh Acres is Southwest Florida, if you've ever seen it. There's back in the day, they divided so many lots, and they sold them off. And it's a hotbed for years, for the last 20, 30 years, it's been a hotbed for a lot of little lots. And what you find in Lehigh Acres, which what makes it great, is you'll see house, giant chunks of land, house, giant chunks of land, development, giant chunks of land. And what that really signals is growth in the area, right? So a lot of people love where the growth is and the opportunity. And so here we had some investors. They said, "Hey, I got on the phone with the seller. It sounds like the mom owned the property, and it's in Lee County." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "I think there's two others." We got on the conference call. There ended up being a total of three heirs. And so many people would have said, "Oh, I don't want to get into this. I don't want to do this," or they said, no, what can we do here? I said, really, it's easy. There's three kids. It's going to be one probate. And they locked all three kids up under contract. And that was it. Like locked up under contract, done. And they made over $25,000 on this one deal. And so that makes everything so easy when you can work with people that understand, hey, this is what we need, this is what we got to do. And a $25,000 assignment is no joke for people that are doing these deals either on their own or with a VA. So that's big. Now, we had another one, very, very similar situation in Deland. Same idea. House, land, house. Like, look, this is a great example. You see house here, and there's like all these lots, a little development here, and then you have this one little half acre right here, maybe a quarter acre. Um, there was another same similar situation, and the land investors got lots of deals going on, and it was one probate, three heirs. We got on the phone with everybody, they broke it down, and they made $45,000 on one assignment deal. One probate, one probate. And it doesn't matter if it's in Lee or DeLand, it's happening all over. Here was another one, Marion County. I told you Marion County was that one in Central Florida that's being really bought up right now by developers. And it was a land deal. And on this one land deal, this was the first time I did the probate for the investor. On this one land deal, I said, what makes this so unique? He said, where this lot is, there's all these other lots with houses, and this one guy was buying up the whole block. So this one buyer found this property and found out he locked it up under contract. He said, I want this. What do I have to pay to get it? So we can own the whole block. So same story. We did an analysis, needed one probate. It only took 2 weeks to get this done in Ocala. 2 weeks. And they made $75,000 on the deal. It really is, it's not hard having these conversations with these sellers because one, they're not going to keep up the back taxes. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They're just done. And they want to be able to move on, do different things, and this is what ends up happening. Um, this was another lot in Port St. Lucie. It was overgrown, but the probate, it was stuck in purgatory for like 2 years. This one
How
attorney,
you doing?
this one
Good, man.
lawyer,
Thank
he
you.
spent so long
Hey,
on the
bud. How
probate.
yourself?
He spent so long on the probate, never got done. So we had to jump in and figure out how do we basically do surgery on this. There was a will, the will left it to a trust, it was all over the place. And I said, whoa, like how do we get this thing done? And what I realized is we had to like eliminate the will, we had to bypass the will and the trust. And what was really funny is that when you did that, it left it all 100% to this 18-year-old kid. Well, go tell an 18-year-old kid that, hey, do you want to make $50,000? I don't think they're gonna say no. And he signed the contract. He was super happy. And we did it in all of 10 weeks, and the investor made $80,000 on a little lot, right? So sometimes it takes a lot of maneuvering and questions and figuring out like how do we do these deals for these things to get done. And we were able to get around the snags, right? And sometimes it's a little bit more expensive to get around the snags, but we got around the snag and it ended up being a great success story.
I think, Al, can you just go back to that one?
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting there, guys, is if you were in the conversation with the property owner and they said, yep, there's a will, there's already a probate open, our minds automatically go to, oh, that's going to be really hard to take that over. But again, on this one, what I really like is that once Al assessed it, you had the ability to kind of push all that aside and start from scratch and actually take a different angle with it, which still ended up in a great result. So don't think that because it's already partway through the process, guys, that process can't be unwound.
Yeah, it definitely takes some analysis. It definitely
Yeah.
takes some research and digging to get into, but at a certain point, if there's a path forward, what's that going to cost? What's that look like? And you got to make sure your numbers work out too, right? Like these are
Yep,
numbers that are workable. Sometimes you get a land deal, and if you lock it up for 5 and you're assigning it out for 8 and it needs something that's going to be a bit more expensive, those numbers don't work. But when you're talking about an $80,000 kind of spread, well, now you're talking there's money in the deal. So there's always a lot of conversations that have to be had when you get these deals. Um, there was another one in Santa Rosa, the Panhandle, right? I don't think this is going to make any sense because that's not Florida, but that's the Panhandle right there, right? So, the Panhandle, a lot of people are going there, lots of land. And here we found out that there was a will for this lot, and the will was leaving it to 5 people, 5 heirs. But one of the heirs died after the person that was on the title. So when we have that, now we have like a double, triple probate situation. And when you do that, now we got to do 2 probates, not just one. And when we did this, it only took a matter of 8 weeks to get the probate done. How long it took to close, that's a different story because you get these counties that are a little bit slower. But they were able to make $90,000 on the lot because this was a great area in that county near a lot of development that was happening.
that's
So
great, Al. Hey,
yeah,
there's
hello.
just a question that's come up in the chat box that I want to put out here. And Khalil, thanks for this question. I think this is great. So Khalil says, I've done a number of these types of deals. My question is, what do you do when the majority of the heirs involved are on board, but invariably there's one that either can't be found, doesn't want to communicate, is checked out, etc., or they just refuse due to the family dynamic. So have you had any deals where that's happened, and what are the legal remedies available there, Al?
If it's a land deal and it's Florida and there's a lot of spread, let me know because there could be maneuvers around that with land, not single family homestead properties. Um, and there can be solutions to it, but it really comes down to numbers because if you're talking it's a $5,000 deal, I'm assigning it for 15 out. No. If you're
Yeah.
talking
Are
I
you
got it
talking
down.
partitioning it?
No, actually. That that's what's interesting is that we've seen certain deals where because of the nature of the land, because it's land and because they didn't live and reside there, there could be maneuvers through the probate where if you have somebody that's not cooperating, maybe we can do it through the probate, and that's even better because then you're getting it 100% versus a partial interest. Now, there could be times where doing a potential partition makes sense, but the ultimate goal is you want to try to see if there's a path forward for a 100% ownership interest first. That's the ultimate, because then it makes your deal even better and more savvy
Yeah.
for end buyers.
Khalil's asking, is that normally a quiet title?
No, it's actually it can be through the probate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Khalil. All I'm gonna say is there are some things I've been able to maneuver and pull out of probate that would surprise a lot of people. I can't pull out every rabbit out of a hat, but if there's a path forward where we can do something creative, sure. But those are going to be also expensive too, right? Like getting around heirs that are not cooperative means a totally different price point. But
Yeah.
I
Good
digress.
question, Khalil.
Yeah. Definitely great question. Yeah. We've had ones where in Kissimmee, Florida, this was the investor's first deal ever. It was a probate. And Alicia had to add to this, it was the Christmas probate. I always get a deal around the holidays, Christmas, July 4th, Labor Day weekend. There's always like a surprise during holiday time. So this deal, she found it the builder really wanted this because they wanted to build all these single family homes there, and they wanted to close in like 30 days. Well, we all knew that was not going to happen, and of course the title company found out last minute that it was going to need probate. We all know that story too. So what happened when I did the analysis with the deed? When we looked at the deed, there were 3 people on the title. Well, I said, well, how many of those people are alive? And they said none. So 3 people, one, two, three, 3 probates to begin with. And when we did the analysis, one of the probates, there was a surviving spouse, another, there was three kids, and then there was another with three kids. So when we did a whole analysis, we found out that there were a total of, what was that, seven heirs. Um, but the key was they needed to get everybody on contract because if you have seven people, you have three probates, like everybody's gonna be on the same page. Otherwise, Khalil's looking at a potential maneuver to partition or do something creative in a probate. Well, she did. She got all of them to agree because these people hadn't talked in years. You have to realize some of these people haven't talked in 10, 20 years. I have stories where I've been on the conference call where they've rekindled their first conversation on my call. But here she was able to lock it up for 80,000 and she assigned it out for 180,000. Her first deal, probate deal to a builder, she made $100,000 on the assignment. It was a crazy story. And it was three probates, so I'm not complaining about three probates. And then we had a citrus grove. Khalil, talk about quiet title. The title company was pushing or suggested, hey, maybe to get this messy situation done, maybe do a quiet title. And if anybody knows me, like quiet title's not the first thing that's on my mind for doing something. Um, Anytime I hear quiet title, I hear long, expensive, and it's gonna take a really long time. Like any one of those three prongs. So my
But
thought,
just for people who aren't aware, maybe just for 10 seconds, what is a quiet title?
it's a lawsuit to silence other potential interest in the property. And you have to serve people, do newspaper publications, and it can take 6 months to a year, if not longer.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was probably my best 10-second answer of quiet title ever.
that's a very good answer. I'm glad. There's another question in here from Frank. Are affidavit of airships usable in Florida?
You can't just use an affidavit of heirs to get around the probate in Florida. Yes, we have to do affidavits of heirs for the file, but you can't just do it like Texas, where you do it and just get around and circumvent probate. It doesn't work like that here. Yeah. So we had this one that was a citrus grove. The title company said, "Hey, probate, do a quiet title, quiet title." So the investor was like, "Hey, quiet title, quiet title." I'm like, "Is anybody dead?" And they said, "Yeah, like a bunch of people." I said, "Probate." Like first reaction is, what does the probate look like? Because probate doesn't take long. You get the right people, you get the thing done. I was right. When we looked at the analysis, we found out there were a total of three people that died. One of the probates had already been done, but the property wasn't included, so we had to include it. Another one was the surviving spouse of this person, so we had to move it to them. And then we had to find the three kids of the other person that died. It really wasn't that hard. Like it really doing the process wasn't hard. Getting the people together, they said wasn't hard. And we were able to get this done in 5 weeks, and they made $100,000 on the assignment. And the moral of the story for me on this was my first default is always probate. I love probate because it gets it done and we can find a way to do it. All that other stuff with quiet title and partitioning is a whole other world that has its role in the right circumstance, but I'm always a big proponent of probate. And that was the story there. We've seen things, Alicia, where four other lawyers couldn't figure out how to solve this one deal. These investors found it from a looming tax deed auction,
Mhm.
and there was a title commitment that came back, and the title commitment had eight people on the title. Eight. So I said, "How many of those people are alive?" They said, "Two." I was like, "Oh boy." So how many probates are we thinking right now? Six. Six probates, and we haven't even dived in on anything yet. And so when we did the whole analysis, this tree was really wide. There was a lot of brothers and sisters, but not a lot of the lineals. So it made it a lot easier in terms of who we were looking for. And the investor needed to know what we were dealing with. So ultimately, we came out with 2 heirs after 6 probates miraculously. That's like you never hear about that. 2 people after 6 probates, you got lucky. All in between the tax deed and the probate, they were all in $30,000, and they were able to get an end buyer to come in after this was done for 200,000. This was a
Nice.
prime area in South Florida, prime for development building. I mean, again, talk about another land lot that was sitting in purgatory. Nobody could figure it out. Nobody could solve it. And here we go. We got it done. And it was a crazy story. I mean, I still remember that whole situation. Um, this was probably the craziest one I've heard about. John Duong came on my podcast. If you all want to go check it out, go watch the episode. It was a wild story. John found a property in Central Florida, and we found out from the beginning of the conversation there was one person on the title. So natural reaction, if it's one person, it's one probate. Not so fast. When we did our analysis, I had to break down who was next, who came down, who was there. And what we found out after the analysis, it was going to be 3 probates for this. And I remember saying to John, it's like, hey, 3 probates, there's 3 heirs, you got to get everybody under contract. And I went over price and everything, and I was like, are we good to go? I remember him saying, we're good to go. And I'm thinking, wow, this must be a really good deal if you're good to go with 3 probates, no questions asked. So come to find out, he told the story on the podcast that he did a double close on this deal. We got the probate done, he bought the deal, it was 2 lots, and he closed on both lots. He didn't even assign them out. He closed on both lots because he kind of wanted to see where the market was. And then eventually he was able to find an end buyer for each one, and he made $100,000 on each lot.
Awesome.
So crazy stories, but these people are really doing these things out there, and people want to buy these properties. So these deals are possible to get done. And look at that, Alicia. We did it in 3 weeks. So if you want to find me because I'm in Florida, there's my email address. Save my email. And I got a free checklist for everybody today. And that Alicia will pass around. But the one thing I will say about land is you all got to run your numbers. You got to make sure these things have spread and these things have juice, because these tight deals with probate don't make sense. A $5,000 to a $10,000 buyer is not making sense. You snag it for 5, you're signing it out for 25. Now there's sense to the deal. So you got to make sure you really run your numbers whenever you're dealing with probate deals. And if you're in the Florida market, I'll wait till the closing to get paid. I get them done initially and efficiently. And my name's Al Nicoletti. And this is my probate checklist. You want to save these items. Alicia will circulate this to everybody. It has the basic things that you will need for a probate. It's not everything. But if you really want to qualify your leads and not waste time, this checklist will help you. I've had investors have epiphanies and go, I completely understand why you do the checklist now. Because nobody wants to swirl around with a potential seller. I got to probate, I got to probate, I got to probate, and they don't produce anything to you. You can't get anything done that way. If you say, hey, I want to work with you, and they start providing you the documents, well, great. Now we got a qualified lead. Where do we go from here? How do we do this? Let's get this done. Let's get to the right expert. So
Yeah.
that's what you got there.
And having that checklist too, guys, is really important, because when you're often dealing with sensitive things like probate or death in the family and inheritance and stuff like that, you don't want to have to keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like when you've got your checklist and you understand that there are inherited properties, or there's an heir on there, or someone has passed away, do this checklist up front and just say to the seller, look, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now. They might not be great ones to answer, but I need to ask you about things like death certificate and the will and the trust, because the more information I have, the more likely I'm able to help you. Does that sound okay? And if you can get this information up front and be able to pass it on, if you're in Florida to Al, but in other states too, to any other probate attorney, it's just going to make it a bit easier to be able to assess that deal and make sure you'll run your numbers with the approximate cost of that probate too. Hey, Mike, thanks for coming on. He said, Al, your podcast is great. Lots of good guidelines and deal examples.
Perfect. Perfect. Love it.
Awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
guys, we are at the top of the hour, but I do want to see if anyone's got any questions. Al, that was fantastic. Have you got any final things you just want to wrap up with?
Just my message that probate deals can be your biggest deals ever, and that I think it's the best niche in real estate. So
Yeah,
anybody who really wants to get into it, that's where you get me, and I'll keep this up for a little bit, Alicia. Just want to say
fantastic.
thank you everybody for being on. Really appreciate it, and thank you to the amazing Alicia Jarrett for having me on today. If you're not connected with her, you need to be right now.
Thank you, my friend. You're awesome. Hey, Steve Lees has actually got a question here, and I know you talked about this before, but it might be something just to delve into a bit more. He said, what are some ways to target these types of deals? So we spoke about pre-foreclosure, tax deeds. I talked about intra-family transfers, quick claim deeds, etc. Anything else you want to enhance on there for Steve? Or Steve, is there any more specific questions you've got about that?
I'll say this while there may be typing. I mean, I know a lot of people, and you can speak to this, Alicia. I know a lot of people love either cold calling and direct mail. Direct mail, a lot of people have found that's very successful with dealing with potential probates because remember, these people with land, they're not in that state. They're in another state. They may be in Michigan, Pennsylvania. And a lot of people love that tangible aspect with mail. They're just old school. So we've just seen always seen people react differently when it comes to mail. Of course, you can do your cold call, but that's definitely something that's been out there. And again, anything that's distressed, like Alicia is talking about, anything distressed, tax delinquents, it's going up for auction, anything that shows a blinking light of, hey, this could be a potential probate.
Yeah, awesome. Any other questions, guys? Does anyone want to come off mute and ask Al any questions? We're more than happy to entertain that.
Yeah, I have a short question.
Yeah,
Hi,
go,
Al.
Mickey.
Al, you and I, we've done a few deals. I'm not sure if we ever looked each other in the eye. It's me.
Good. It's Mike,
Uh,
right?
that's right. Um,
Great.
just a quick question about the will. There is no official way to find out if there's a will. The will is not recorded anywhere, right? So I would have to kind of trust to the person I'm talking to that they know that there is a will, or how do you work with wills?
Great
I mean,
question, Mickey.
yeah, I mean, Mickey, it really depends, right? Like sometimes, usually the people know about if there's a will or not. Rarely from time to time, the will may be on deposit with the county where the person lived and resided. So sometimes they may have had a will in another state. I mean, that's hard for you to find out and determine if they did. But a great example is let's just say it's a single family home in Jacksonville. They lived and resided in Jacksonville, and they were savvy enough to have a will. Sometimes those people deposit it in the courthouse already under a will deposit. But a lot of people don't do that. So really, we're all kind of dependent on if they will let us know if there's a will or not. That's what we're really trying to find out is, hey, are you aware of it? Do you know where one is? The hope is that they do. And if they don't, they don't. That's okay. Or some of them are really convinced that there's not, you know?
Okay, and if the probate is through and the will pops up after it, it's not valid anymore. Did that ever happen after 1,000 probates to you?
I will say probably it's happened once, but then they had to go back and fix it. Or it depends. Sometimes it's like, nobody knew at the time. So it's really hard to say like what everybody would want to do. In the scenario that I saw, they just went back and fixed it, and it wasn't a whole big deal. There really wasn't a whole lot to do.
Okay.
Great
Cool.
question.
Thanks.
And great seeing you. I was glad we got that one done.
So, thank you.
For sure. Mike, go for it.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
Al,
muted. Mike, go for it.
I can't hear you, Alicia. You're muted.
Am I good now?
Recent podcast, Al. You had an example, or somebody was talking about a, you know, I'm not using your words, but it was something to the effect of the multiple iterations of a will that develop over time and organically, I guess, if you want to call it, and you end up sort of with this duct taped, several iterations. I mean, it seems normal like that, sort of like, you know, life just goes on and things change. How do you handle, say, several versions of that will?
I think they'd have to be analyzed at the time of the consult, right? So, like, I haven't seen a scenario where there are multiple versions of a will. Um, I've seen where maybe they've done one will and it was like back in the 70s and they named five people. And since then, all five people have died, right? And it's like, what are you supposed to do at that point, right? Um, it's so hard to say what that looks like. And this is what I tell everybody, Mike, is that whenever you get a scenario, you gotta analyze it case by case from the top, right? What is everybody aware of? What does everybody have? I just haven't had a scenario where there's just multiple wills that were executed. Like one time it said this, next time it said that, next time it said this. Um, those are things that just have to be brought to the attention during the meeting to see where it goes.
I think the example that the gal was using, somebody had a paralegal prep it, and then they were trying to figure out which version of that one. And I think your advice was just what you said, which is kind of got to just go to the final version because that's the most recent version is the one that you're going to go off of. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like again, you got to look at it, but I'd say that's probably where it's headed because usually the other ones have been revoked. There's language in the will that says that any previous codicil or will has now been revoked, and now this one takes effect. Um, but again, you got to be careful to see like what does that really look like, you know? Does the will say that? Is it properly executed? Where's the original will? There's a lot of different questions that have to be played out to determine what's going on. Yeah. And thanks for watching the show. Really appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think your show has a lot of case examples. I mean, you keep it neutral, but it emphasizes what you just said. They are case by cases. There's not a cookie cutter. I mean, there might be a template, but there's not, one size fits all. And yeah, I'm discerning on my podcasts. If you made the list, you're good.
Good. Good. Honored. Thank you.
Love it, Mike. Hey, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Al, a huge heartfelt thanks from me to you. I know that you are well sought after these days for speaking and adding value to any real estate community, especially in the vacant land space. So just want to honor you in this moment and say, how much we love you giving back and helping everybody on this journey. Guys, if you can just show your appreciation for Al, a little golf clap or a little love hearting or whatever you want to do, that would be great. But you've got Al's details there, guys. So, he's there to help. He's very active on socials. Go and check out his YouTube page and socials as well. He puts out so much great content that's really valuable. And hopefully you all learned something today too. Or even just, if you didn't learn anything new, maybe just gave you a refreshed approach, especially on those case studies, to see that probate doesn't have to be big and scary. And as long as you've got the right people on your team, you can get it done fast and efficiently and make a bucket load of money and help out some people in the process. So, I really feel that probate is one of those situations that you can get, without sounding stereotypical, a real win-win. Because as you said, our 18-year-old guy was like, Heck yeah, I'll take $50,000. Thanks very much. Rather than having to sit on a property that they need to pay taxes on. So Al, thanks again. I really value your input, your insights and your experience. And guys, thanks everyone for being here. Our next session, Corianne, who have we got coming up in 2 weeks? I think we've got a session on subdividing, or is it Seth? We'll have to have a look.
Beth, I believe. Stay tuned, guys. We actually have now made it all one calendar, so you can just subscribe to the Supercharged Offers calendar, see that we do Fund My Deal every other week, and then we bring amazing people like Al. I want to say it's Seth Williams in 2 weeks, actually. So
It's
it's
either
going to
going
be
to
a good one.
Seth or it's going to be Mike on subdividing, but we'll have to double check our calendar. But lots of really good stuff coming up, guys. So everyone, thanks so much for being on here. Love to you all and have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you,
God bless
everybody.
I will send out the
Bye.
recording and the checklist tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Val.